Hello guys, it's me, Matto. In this video, I'll be talking about the overall story differences and what presentation can really do in these gacha games. I will be comparing the ZZZ story presentation. Okay, I will not be comparing the writing overall, but I will be comparing the presentation of the general story compared to the latest Honkai Star Rail patch. I will be comparing both ZZZ and Wuthering Waves to this because I feel like these games are very close. I will not be comparing it to Genshin because basically the latest HSR patch has been what Genshin has been doing for a long time, which is why I don't really see a reason to compare those. Though there is a little thing that I could compare with Genshin, right? I feel like even Genshin does a little bit of a better job with the cutscenes. They are much longer, even though there is much less cutscenes than in HSR. In Genshin, there's just one cutscene at the end of the quest, which is like a minute long, which is pretty fine. You can see that the characters are moving. They do have the same 6 or 5 poses that they use over and over again, but the camera is actually moving. It's dynamic. And now let's compare it to HSR, the latest HSR story. Okay, let's compare it to this, for example. There is no camera movement that makes it more dynamic. There is really nothing like that. It's just standing around, saying stuff, maybe move once in a while. That's pretty much it. Like, this is not a very dynamic way of storytelling. It's just standing around. And now this, I don't think this is really fair. I will compare it to a different scene in which the characters actually do move, which was at the beginning of the story. So here, the camera is actually moving, which is very nice. And as you can see, it is just moving, their hands moving, same poses, whatever. It's pretty much the same stuff as the Genshin cutscenes or story or whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much the same thing. He moves his head, okay, yeah. It's pretty much the same approach as Genshin. However, the problem in HSR is that HSR doesn't really have many of these stories with dynamic camera angles. As you can see here, Shribi is just saying shit. The camera is not moving. Now it moved. It's going to stay at this angle for about the 5 next lines. There's another camera angle that is just still. Everyone is just still except the NPC that's talking. Like, this is a very lazy way of telling a story and doesn't make you interested in the story that they're trying to tell. Another example, they're just standing around, not moving, the camera is still. There really isn't anything interesting about the way that they tell the story. Okay, they changed the angle, amazing. But it doesn't change the fact that it is the same shit. Now, let's compare it to the storytelling of Wuthering Waves, okay? I have decided to pick the Camellia quest because I feel like there was a lot of movement there. And it had very different sort of camera angles. Let's compare it to that. So, as you can see, there are different animations that they're using. It isn't the same for animations. As you can see, she is actually holding something in her hand, moving around, going forward, right? It isn't the same sort of still storytelling, I guess you could say, right? She turns around, which seems to be a new animation that they made just for this quest. And here's another scene. This is pretty cinematic, very nice. I don't think this is something that Genshin would really do, or HSR, in their storytelling. They made a new animation just for this scene. It isn't a cutscene, it's in-engine. And yeah, I mean, it's clear that the Kuro devs are not lazy and will make new animations to fit the story, which the Genshin devs and the HSR devs don't seem to do. I will not say that the ZZZ devs are the same because I don't think they are. I think they actually have new animations and they make new animations to make the storytelling more interesting. And if this was the way that the HSR story was told, a recent one with a lot more dynamic camera movements, a lot more animations to make it more interesting, right? I feel like it could work. You don't have to have so much yapping in there. They need to add more angles and more animations for it. And another point that I will mention, right, are the cutscenes. Really great one was the Wuthering Waves 1.3 quest patch, which really did a great job with the cutscenes. If you tell your story in a good way, it can be definitely interesting. It can make your story a lot more fun and better. Like here, I will show you an example. I feel like this is a really good way to do a story. Even though I don't really get what the point of this whole scene was, right? Why we had to parkour around the place and why we were in that place in the first place, right? I don't really understand it, but it was cool. I'll show you one more scene in regards to this whole thing that was very cinematic and wasn't very short either, right? And that's the whole shorekeeper thing. at the end. Honestly, like, are there any other gacha games that have scenes like this? It was so cinematic and so nice to look at. I mean, this had my full attention when this happened, right? The latest HSR story, there really wasn't anything that just like took my attention. It made me say, oh man, that's great. Now, I want to talk about ZZZ last, because it's a Hoyo game, right? I think they do the best job of telling stories, actually. Now, the story might not be anything absolutely insane or whatever, it's pretty generic most of the time, but it is fun to watch. It has some great voice acting, and I think that really helps it. So in ZZZ, you have these scenes, these comic book scenes, which are great for storytelling. I feel like they are interesting to look at. It really adds a lot to it. I think that is one of the parts why the ZZZ story is good. And it's not like they introduced this in 1.0 and just kind of gave up on it and didn't really do it because it was too much effort. No, they keep doing them, and it's great. And it gives the characters the option to act out some expressions that they can't really do in the overall engine. Now, here's another thing that I will not say is amazing, right? These scenes, these sort of Zoom calls, sometimes they do drag on a little bit, but I don't think the dialogue is that long. And usually they don't last like 10 minutes without anything happening, you know? There's a lot of stuff, you know, that they say and it adds to the story. And you can skip it if you don't like it. You can just skip it if you don't want to watch these scenes, right? And the characters do have expressions and animations. Some of them are repeated, right? That is something that happens, but it feels a lot more alive because the characters, you know, they move. They're not just standing around like robots. Now, this is kind of same with the thing that the HSR 3.0 did with the whole Aglia scene where it was just one PNG. However, in ZZZ's case, it doesn't take 10 minutes of yapping, right? This scene takes about 3 minutes, okay? I mean, 3 minutes isn't really going to kill you. Looking at a static image for 3 minutes isn't going to kill you. And this is not just a static image of Aglia. I mean, you can see in this image there's a lot of stuff in the background. On the right, you can see Zhu Yuan and a new Eridu public security officer as well. There is a lot to see from this image, and you don't take 10 minutes looking at it, which also helps a lot. However, I will say about ZZZ that the best part about it really is the cutscenes. They really add a lot, and the way they animate them is really fun. It's a great way to animate and very unique in the gacha space. You don't really see much animation like this, though I'm pretty sure that will change with Neverness to Everness, but it really seems like the devs are having a lot of fun making the story, animating the story, and it seems like that is their biggest priority, right? Making the story, which is a great thing. Sure, the story wasn't the best, right? But it's a thought that counts. And if it's fun to look at, I mean, even the worst story, if it's fun to look at, if it's presented in a great way, I feel like it can be fun. Though I'm not saying that the ZZZ story is bad. I enjoyed it. I think it's great. And it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, these cutscenes really add to the story. They connect the plot points, right? This one is connecting the plot point of escaping from the Section 6 to just getting stuck with Hoshimi Miyabi in a hollow. It connected these two plot points pretty nicely. And most of these cutscenes really do that. And not to mention, I mean, this wasn't a short cutscene. It was like 3 minutes long, around there. Maybe a little bit less, all right? 2 minutes, whatever. Now, my next point, obviously there is some gameplay in the middle of it, but it isn't just some useless puzzles, right? I mean, there are puzzles, right? But it makes sense from a plot perspective. It does make sense, you know, you have to get the hollow observation data with Miyabi to get out of the hollow, so there is a reason for it to be there, you know, there was a reason to do the puzzles. Overall, I just wanted to highlight the differences in storytelling in all of these games. I think ZZZ does the best job at storytelling with a lot of cutscenes, and cutscenes really do help a lot and add a lot to the story. I think definitely HSR should learn maybe from ZZZ, because ZZZ is doing a really good job with their storytelling. So obviously they can't have every single update have like 10 cutscenes that are 2 minutes long or whatever. I get that, but just if you're not gonna have long cutscenes, right, you should at least shorten the story so it isn't as long, right? And just improve the presentation that you have for the story in general. I want to give a shout out to Ruben925 for having all of the story cutscenes on his YouTube channel. That's all I want to talk about in this video, and I want to thank you for watching, and bye.